personally welcome you and look forward to working with you.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. Mr. Bessent, thanks very much for being in the office the other day. Mr. Bessent, the United States today has more income and wealth inequality than has ever existed in the history of our country. You got three people on top, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg, who are now worth almost $1 trillion. That is more than half of the bottom of our society, some 170 million people. Three people, more wealth than the bottom, 170 million. We have more concentration of ownership today than we have ever had. We have more concentration of ownership in the media, where a handful of billionaires like Musk, Bezos, Rupert Murdoch increasingly own the media and the information that the American people receive. We have a corrupt campaign finance system in which a small number of billionaires in both political parties make huge contributions into the presidential and congressional campaigns.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down a tense and revealing Senate exchange involving Senator Bernie Sanders and Mr. Bessent, a nominee expected to serve in the incoming administration. This conversation touches on wealth inequality, the minimum wage, credit card interest rates, and even a question of whether the United States is drifting toward an oligarchy. As always, I'll give you a neutral, fact-focused analysis and my perspective as a political analyst.
When you have a small number of multi-billionaires who have enormous economic, media, and political power, would you agree with President Biden, who last night stated, and I quote, "An oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights, and freedoms," end of quote. That's what President Biden said last night. I agree with him. Do you?
Senator Sanders, I enjoyed our visit.
Talk a little bit closer into the mic.
I enjoyed our visit, and I hope you got my follow-up materials that on the discussions, my previous writings on the tariffs and China. And look, the three billionaires who you listed that all made the money themselves. Mr. Musk came to the country as an immigrant.
I understand that, but what I'm asking you is, when you have a handful of people like Musk, who will soon be part of the Trump administration, and others, when you have three people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society, when these people have enormous influence over the media, when they spend huge amounts of money in both political parties to elect candidates, what Biden said last night is we're moving toward an oligarchy. I'm asking you that question. Do you think, forget how they made their money, do you think that when so few people have so much wealth and so much economic and political power, that that is an oligarchic form of society?
Well, I would note that President Biden gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to two people who I think would qualify for his oligarchs. So
this is not a condemnation of any one individual. I'm just asking you, would so few people have so much wealth and power? But do you think that that is an oligarchic form of society?
Senator, I think it depends on the ability to move up and down the income.
No, that's not really the answer. I mean, even if you had that mobility, no matter who those individuals might be. All right, but let me ask you another question. Right now in America, we have over 22 million workers who are making less than $15 an hour, and nearly 40 million people in our country earning less than $17 an hour. Shamefully, the federal minimum wage, despite the efforts of myself and other people here, have not been raised since 2009 and remains an unbelievable $7.25 an hour. Will you work with those of us who want to raise the federal minimum wage to a living wage to take millions of Americans out of poverty?
Senator, I believe that the minimum wage is more of a statewide and regional issue.
So you don't think we should change the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Bessent, millions of working-class Americans who are struggling to keep their heads above water are paying outrageously high interest rates on their credit cards. Over half the American people who take out new credit cards are being charged interest rates of over 24%. 24%. During his campaign, President-elect Trump promised that he was going to cap credit card interest rates at 10%. I happen to think that that is a very good idea, and I will soon be introducing legislation to do just that. Will you, as if you are confirmed, be supportive of what President-elect Trump said and what I want to see happen, and that is to cap credit card interest rates at 10%?
Senator, I think we can both agree that many credit card companies have been bad actors throughout history, and I will get back to you once.
Now, a very simple question. Trump said he wants to cap credit card interest rates at 10%. I agree with him. Will you be supportive of what Trump and I would like to do?
When President Trump takes office, and if I am confirmed, I will follow what President Trump wants to do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next is Senator Smith.
The hearing begins with Sanders welcoming the nominee, but the tone quickly shifts. Sanders immediately frames a discussion around wealth and power in America, citing a striking statistic. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg collectively hold nearly $1 trillion more wealth than the bottom 170 million Americans combined. This isn't a new issue for Sanders. It's a cornerstone of his political platform. But what stood out is how he connects this wealth concentration to influence over media, campaign financing, and ultimately democratic functioning. As an analyst, it's important to note, regardless of political ideology, these numbers raise valid questions about the distribution of economic power and its impact on policymaking. Sanders quotes former President Biden, who recently claimed, "An oligarchy is taking shape in America." Sanders agrees with that statement and presses the nominee to say whether he agrees too. Mr. Bessent, however, sidesteps the question multiple times. He references economic mobility and even mentions that Biden has honored wealthy individuals himself. But he never answers the core issue Sanders is raising. Does extraordinary concentration of wealth and influence constitute an oligarchic system? As a political analyst, here's my take. The term oligarchy is heavily loaded and often used rhetorically, but the underlying concern is legitimate when wealth, media ownership, and political funding are increasingly controlled by a small group. That dynamic deserves scrutiny. Whether or not one uses the word oligarchy, the structural imbalance is a real policy question. Sanders shifts to wages, pointing out that more than 22 million American workers earn under $15 an hour, and nearly 40 million earn under $17. Meanwhile, the federal minimum wage remains $7.25 and hasn't been raised since 2009. He asked Mr. Bessent directly whether he would support a federal increase. Again, the answer is clear but controversial. Mr. Bessent says no, arguing minimum wage laws should be decided at the state and regional level. From a neutral standpoint, this is a classic ideological divide. Federal-level advocates argue wages should match cost of living realities and prevent poverty nationwide. State-level advocates argue that economic conditions vary and national mandates could hurt small businesses in low-cost regions. Both sides have coherent arguments, but Sanders clearly sees federal inaction as unacceptable given rising living costs. One of the more surprising moments is Sanders invoking President Trump. Trump previously campaigned on capping credit card interest rates at 10%. Today, many new credit cards charge 24% or more, which Sanders argues is crushing working families already living paycheck to paycheck. He asked Mr. Bessent if he will support a 10% cap, something both Sanders and Trump agree on. This is where the nominee offers another cautious non-answer. He acknowledges problems with credit card companies, but refuses to commit until he's aligned with whatever Trump decides once in office. As an analyst, I see this as a strategic move. Nominees rarely commit to policy positions before confirmation, especially when tied to a president-elect's agenda. Still, the core issue remains. Americans are paying some of the highest interest rates in modern history. Whether a cap is the right tool is debatable, but the burden on consumers is undeniable. This hearing wasn't just about policy, it was about political philosophy. Sanders was probing deeper questions about the nature of power, the fairness of the economic system, the responsibility of political leaders to intervene. Meanwhile, Mr. Bessent approached the conversation cautiously, emphasizing administrative loyalty and avoiding controversial labels like oligarchy. His answers reflect a nominee trying to avoid making commitments before his boss takes office. This style of exchange is common in confirmation hearings. A senator pushes for ideological clarity, while a nominee tries to maintain flexibility. But the clash between Sanders' moral urgency and Bessent's political guardedness made this particularly tense. So what should we take from this? 1. Wealth inequality is a real and measurable trend, regardless of political messaging. 2. Media and campaign finance influence remains central to debates about democracy. 3. Minimum wage policy continues to divide policymakers across ideological lines. 4. High interest rates are bipartisan. Concern even Trump's past comments reflect that. 5. Nominees rarely give direct answers, especially when asked about future administration policy. The bigger picture here is that America is wrestling with fundamental questions about fairness, governance, and economic opportunity. Sanders frames these issues as crises demanding immediate action. The nominee frames them as matters to be handled cautiously and within the priorities of the incoming administration. Neither approach is inherently wrong. They simply reflect different political roles and responsibilities. That wraps up today's breakdown. Let me know in the comments. Do you think the U.S. is drifting toward an oligarchy, or is this just political rhetoric? And what do you think about federal versus state control over the minimum wage? If you found this analysis helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more political breakdowns. Thanks for watching. See you next time.